Hello, my name is Chris Dellen with Rethink and Evangelism, and I'm excited today to talk to you about a topic that we are really passionate about, and that's helping churches grow. For the better part of my career, I've had the opportunity to lead teams that have worked with the largest companies in the world and do some real innovative things to help them grow. And what we're really passionate about is taking that knowledge and applying it in a church setting and helping churches grow. And we've identified, as we've been doing this for the last year, 7 roadblocks that are really impacting the way churches are modernizing their evangelistic efforts. And so we're going to talk through those 7 today. And the first one is, and we see this just about everywhere that we go, that outreach is treated as a one-off event. And we've just got to get rid of that. And I'm just going to give you a scenario that I've seen play time and time again. And that's if you get somebody to actually walk into your church's door, for whatever the reason, you have a special event, you have a concert, and when you get them to come into your church, if they don't become a member of your church within 3 months, what we typically see is that that person will never hear from your church again, ever. And out of all the 7 roadblocks that we're going to talk about today, this one really breaks my heart. I'm just going to give you a couple real life stories that we've seen over the last year or so. And so, we were working with a church, and we had an outreach effort in that community. And we found somebody who responded that when we talked with them, they said they hadn't been back to our church for 50 years. And it wasn't because they didn't believe what we believed. It's not that they didn't like who we were. It's not that we were mean to them. It's just we didn't invite them back. And if we had just invited them back, how much more engaged would that person have been? And so 50 years went by for him to actually respond, and he did. And we invited him. We had a corn roast in the community. We invited him back and said, would you like to come to the corn roast? And he did. And we were sitting down with him. He said, man, if you could just keep inviting me to these things, I really have missed you for 50 years. We just didn't show up. I'll give you another example here. So there's a gentleman in the community. His name is Arthur. He reached out to the church. And we put a plan in place that doesn't let people fall through the cracks. And I'm just going to give you a perspective on this. And I'm not going to march through all the timeline, but over the course of 7.5 months, we invited this person to church 30 times. And I might say that's a little crazy, that people are going to think you're a little psycho. But if you do it properly, it can be a real value add to that person. And so for 30 times that we invited him to church, he never even responded. He didn't come back to church. He didn't do anything. And on Christmas morning at 11:59 a.m., he responded. And he said, I want to have a conversation. But it took us inviting him to have that conversation 30 times before he even responded. And so, as you're thinking to yourself right now, how many churches does my church, does it have a plan in place to make sure when somebody shows up that they will always get invited back? Unfortunately, from what we see, most don't get past 1 or 2. But in the case I just said, it took 30 times just to start a conversation. We have to have a better plan. Outreach cannot be a one-time event. Number 2 in our 7 roadblocks that I see that are really preventing churches from modernizing the way they evangelize in their communities. And that's a lack of adoption of technology. You know, there's so much technology out there. I love technology. I've been in technology for about 15 years. There's so much of it together, but churches are, by and large, what we see are really behind. And even a couple years ago, we have seen, and we've worked with organizations that had to spend millions of dollars on technology. And you know what? Sometimes it takes a while for this to happen, but the cost of technology has come so low that some sophisticated outreach activities are almost don't cost a thing if you know how to use the actual technology itself. And so we have, just out of the gate, for every single church out there, there's about 11 pieces of technology we'd recommend no matter what, day one. And most of them start at free. And they're just easy, simple ways to stay in contact with people who've raised their hand in your community and said, we are interested in learning more about you. Technology can be such an addition. And just so you can wrap your minds around it, if you're thinking, this is only going to reach young people in our community, think again. If you didn't know this, 9 out of 10 practicing Christians today are on Facebook. 9 out of 10 people. It's just an amazing way to reach people in your communities. And you can go down and look at the list, but 9 out of 10. And I'm talking not just young folks, I'm talking about some of the oldest members. My grandmother is more active on Facebook than I am. So it doesn't have to be just young people. It's everybody. And so using technology properly, it allows us to look at evangelism through a much broader lens than just a one-time event, which we just have to get rid of that concept altogether. And so using technology can do so much of the heavy lifting today. It can follow up on folks that are interested. It can show you who's interested, who's attending things, how often are they attending, are they responding to your request to come to your church, or are they not? And if you use technology right, it can do the work of 100 people every single day on your behalf to get the word out about your church. Number 3, I think we need to rethink the way we deploy our limited resources. When I say limited resources, I mean time. And I've grown up going to church my whole life, and every single time that we wanted to go out and we wanted to have an evangelistic effort in our community, it was, Chris, we want you to go down Main Street, and Jessica, we want you to go down First Street, and so on and so forth. And not that that's a bad approach. I think we have to have face-to-face friendship with our neighbors, but it's a very inefficient way for us to reach out into our communities. And so I'll just give you a perspective where we went out and we offered a book and said, hey, anybody in the community right now want a copy of this book? And for a couple $100, we knocked virtually on nearly 3,000 people's doors in our community. We used some sophisticated, targeted advertising just to say, let's go out into our community just a few miles from our church, and we want to ask them, are you interested in this topic? And out of those 3,000 people, 24 said, yes, I want one of those. And if you think to the way your church probably does evangelism outreach today, we spend all of our time trying to knock on the 3,000 doors, and we never find the 24 who are truly interested. And so basically what I'm saying is, if we just rethink the way we reach out into our community, I can tell you, I've been a member of our church for nearly 14 years, and I don't think our church in the last 14 years has knocked on 3,000 doors. And it took us a matter of a couple weeks to do that. So in a perfect world, if we can use some technology to reach out into our communities and say, who is interested in having a conversation about this topic that we're super passionate about, a handful are probably going to raise their hand and say, yes, I'm interested. So my question is, are we spending our time working in the right place? Are we spending it efficiently? Is it more efficient to go knock on 3,000 doors, which may take us 20 years to do? Or can we do that in a couple weeks, and the handful of people who say, I'm interested right this second, let's have a conversation? I think we would have a huge difference in our outreach if we just focused on the people who we knew were interested. But most churches don't have the concept of how do we go out in their community and find those. It's possible. And so, I get to thinking about that. I've had a chance to be in front of a lot of audiences over my lifetime, and it's really interesting for the people who come to church and sit in the back pew and think they're fooling everybody by taking a snooze. I can tell you, if you're a presenter at the front, it stands out like a sore thumb. We just see you. In this new paradigm, there's a lot of folks who are coming to your church or they're visiting you online, but you have no idea who they are. You don't know if they're interested. You don't know if they're engaging with your content. You see your views climbing. You see some of the engagement as a whole metrics climbing, but you don't know who that is. But there's a lot of ways, a lot of different things you can look at to see, is this person interested right now? Are they ready for a conversation right now? And just like you can see in your church, when you're looking out at your congregation, you can see, I can see that person sitting on the edge of the seat, they're ready for a conversation. In a digital world where you may not even have a face-to-face relationship with that, it's possible to do that today. And so one of the things that we did is we worked with a church. We built their audience up to over 1,000 people in their community. And over the course of about 8 months, we started looking at different ways that they engaged with us. And it was really interesting. We built this very simple algorithm that said, we're going to look across all these different ways that we think are meaningful, that reach out to us. And so we took a look at that. We took that list of 1,000 and we ran it through that formula, and out came a couple dozen people who are showing real interest. They're attending our live streams. They're coming to our website. They're responding to communications. They're opening communications. And our pastor, Pastor Nix, was willing to give those 24 a call. And it was really interesting. He said, you know what, I'm not necessarily interested in cold calling. And as I convinced him, it wasn't cold calling because these 24 individuals already knew us. They were interacting with us. They're having conversations with us. We just didn't know it at the time. We weren't able to pull it together. And so he reached out and called them, and he got a hold of several people on that list. And when he did, he said, hey, this is Pastor Nix calling. I just wanted to reach out. And before he could really get the words out, they would say, hey, Pastor Nix, and realize these people had never set foot in our church. We didn't know them. We'd never had a face-to-face conversation with them. Pastor Nix called them and he said, I just wanted to connect with you. And they were completely shocked. And one of the individuals got so excited that he said, you know what you've been saying makes sense. I've been convicted. I've been talking to my colleagues about this. This relationship with the church had started way before they had ever even set foot in the church. And so finding different ways to figure out who is really interested right at this moment in time can really help you understand how and who she should reach out to. Number 4 on our list of 7 is never stop looking for micro conversion opportunities. And what I mean by that is I'm not talking about the conversion where they become a member of your church, commit their whole life to Christ forever. What I'm talking is about how can you ask them to make a step? And that step could be very simple. It could be, come to our event. It could be, would you like a copy of our book? It could be, we're having a concert. It could be a lot of different things. The opportunities are really endless. It's just limited by our imaginations to find things to ask people to. But if you do that, that gets them to take a step. And if you use that step as an indicator, you can lead to the next step and the next step. And it can have just a tremendous impact. I'll give you an example. So we wanted to come up with an idea to reach out in the community for Halloween. And so we came up with this idea called Happy Fall. And so we just did some really targeted advertising within just a couple miles of the church. And we said, if you are interested in bringing your kids by for some free candy and a hot cocoa for you, we would love it. Come on by. And I think we spent $50 on the advertisement. And our team had never done this before, and so they planned for 70 people to come by. And so we did this ad, we set up our table, we had it all ready with bags of treats and hot cocoa for the adults. We launched this out, we had no idea what to expect. And by our little tiny church, over 200 people came, and we had to go get more treats like 5 times because we weren't prepared. We met the need of the people right there, and they just came. So there's lots of opportunities to reach out into your community. on your website, if you look at it, is there a clear, we call it in the marketing world, a call to action for them to take the next step? Are they going to take the next step, or are you not asking them? If you don't ask them, do you want to hear from us again? I can promise you they're not going to do it. So there's a lot of opportunities out there today to just say, would you like to continue hearing from us? We launched one on one page, and if you look back over the last 4 months, about 2% of people say, yes, I want to subscribe to that. I want to hear from you. And we're adding new people every single month that are saying, I want to hear from you, and our impact builds. Schedule a Bible study. It's another thing that you can do. There's some really cool stuff that connects with your Bible worker, your pastors, or your team's calendars, and they can actually set up a meeting. They can choose a time. It looks at the ministry team and evaluates, are they available? And you can schedule a time right then and there. Your interest can. And so we've launched that on a number of areas. We've had several people reach out for Bible study just because we asked. Do you want one? And some people raised their hand and said, yes, I do want to study the Bible. Number 5 is, this one really goes to, we want everybody to never stop hearing from us in a really positive, uplifting way. And so what we like to call this is a weekly cycle of communication. It's a strategy. It's a strategy to never not be heard from again. And so when we started this, working with churches, it just started out as a simple email. And I love email because it's scalable. It takes the same amount of time to program one email as it does to send one email out to 50 million people. So the more people we have that are interested, it grows. It doesn't take 1 ounce more of effort. So how do we grow it? And so we started there. And then we started adding things in like text messaging and Facebook posts and Instagram and paid campaigns, to the point now that it's just gotten so sophisticated. We launch about a dozen new web pages a month. We launch about 36 paid advertising campaigns. And I'm not talking Super Bowl ads. I'm talking like $5 here and $10 there. How do we start and continue nurturing those folks who are interested? We send out, we have a virtual Bible worker team that we work with and help produce the content to actually write emails for them to send out into the community. We send hundreds of text messages a month to people who've said, yes, you can send us text messages. We send out thousands of marketing emails. Doesn't happen overnight. It takes a strategy and it takes time to do it. The whole point is, you don't want to be like that first person that we talked about who comes to your church and then they never hear from you again. There's no excuse for that today. We've got technology that'll keep us connected with people no matter where they're at. We just have to use it. It's sitting in front of us. Number 6 of our 7 roadblocks that we see is, you can't improve what you don't measure. Is your church measuring? I'll just give you an example of this. We launched a campaign in the community, and we just said, would you like a copy of this book? And we launched 2 versions, and the marketing world is called an A/B split test, and you can even get more sophisticated and things that are called multivariate tests and stuff. And your church may be interested in that, but we just did a simple A/B split test, and we launched 2 ads out into the community, and we just said, we want to see if you want a copy of this book. And we had one ad that it cost us about $9.54 for somebody to say, I want a copy of that book. And the very same ad, the very same words, the very same call to action, the only thing that was different is the image we launched, and it cost $27 per person to request that book. It was 300% more costly, and it was just the design. And so testing can help you do all kinds of things. We're in the middle of a seminar where we do a weekly campaign to drive people, to get people interested and attend evangelism series that happens on a weekly basis, not an every night basis. And we did some testing. Every week we kind of alter the ads to see what works. And so when we started, our average cost per registration was $56 a person. Well, about 2 months into this, 10 meetings into this, we said, we're going to try something different. We're going to take everybody who has ever reached out to us, and we're going to target just them. You have the ability in a lot of modern ad tools to be able to send that audience up and then send ads just to them. And so we did that, and our cost per registration went from $56 a piece to $8.08 a piece, just by changing our approach to outreach. All it was, we just tried something new. And that's why if you don't measure, you're going to be missing out on so much opportunity to improve your outreach efforts in the future. Another interesting thing, by applying these principles, our church, our personal church that we are working with, had to shut down like most other churches in the country for COVID. And when we did, as you would imagine, our live stream traffic just spiked up. And our church stayed closed for 3 months the first time, and then it opened back up. And as you can imagine, the numbers just went all the way back down again. And not quite all the way back down, but it took a significant hit. And then what was interesting, our church remained open all the way through the end of November. And if you look at the data for November, it was almost the exact same as it was when our church was closed 6 months earlier. And so if you compare November of 2020 live stream viewership with November of 2019, their church's live stream traffic, again, fully open at that point in time, grew 3,200% just by staying in touch and inviting people. Again, we had somebody who didn't come back to our church for 50 years, not because we were crazy, it's because we just didn't say, hey, would you like to come? And so asking people to come can make a big difference. Our pastor, we really wanted to reach more people in the community, and if you are like a lot of churches that do a live stream, it can be a little disorienting when somebody just pops into it because it may be in the middle of announcement time or something. And so we wanted to create an opportunity to reach out that was not 2.5 hours long. So our pastor committed himself to creating a weekly devotional. We started using this in a significant way. But the sole intention of, we want to use that as an opportunity to start creating relationships. A lot more people are willing to invest 3 minutes in a devotional than 2.5 hours for a live stream. And so we tested this out, and just by launching a devotional and kind of coming up with a couple creative ways to take that and push it out to the community, our reach, Facebook has a reach metric, it's called 3-second views, it's how many people have been exposed to this message, basically increased by about 250% just by creating some content that was a lot more digestible than an entire church service on the live stream. And that was it. That was all we did. And so there's a lot of pieces of data that you can look at that are just fantastic. And one that a communication channel you have to be really careful about, by the way, that I'm really passionate about these days is text messaging. It's so immediate, so personal. When you send one, most of us don't spend more than 5 feet away from our phone for about 99% of the day. So when you get a text message, it's almost instantaneous. People see it. If you take the time to ask people and get them to subscribe to it, it's a fabulous medium to send out and say, hey, our live stream started. Would you like to hop in? Bam. They get it. They can open up. They can act on it. So you have to be really careful, because if you don't get permission, you can tick people off a whole lot faster than you can earn their trust. So be very careful with it, but it's a fabulous medium to reach out into your community. Last of the 7 is, I think small is the new big. I think, again, this is our opinion on things, but what we see happen from evangelistic series today, just evangelism outreach in general today, is churches think, one, they have to do something more than they're already doing, which I think you just have to push that out of your mind. Because if you look at it, churches do 52 church services a year. They probably do 52 Bible studies a year. They probably have 52 prayer meetings a year. And even though they're doing 156 events a year, they don't think they're doing evangelism until it's something on top of those 156 events, which I think is crazy, personally. And so I think we have to get out of this mindset that evangelism has to be packaged up in this one momentous event that just completely burns our churches out. It completely takes all of our resources away, and we only do it once a year. I think evangelism has to shift from this model to something that just never ends. if you take this leap with me that evangelism is not a one-time event, but it's a never-ending event, it changes everything. And so you go from, we have to get this person in the door, and we have to get them to be a baptized member of the church in this one fell swoop, versus we're going to do this and we're going to stay in touch with you no matter what forever. It changes everything. And everything you do can build on itself. So if you figure out new ways to reach people, if you figure out new ways to engage people, and if you get new ways to have people come closer, ask them to do more things, over time, I think the results are tremendously different than the way we've approached evangelism for the last decades. And I'm going to get up on my soapbox here and just say that I personally believe that what we're talking about here today represents the biggest opportunity for grassroots church evangelism in the last 50 years. And I don't think it's close. I think we've never had the ability, we've never had the technology at the cost that it's available today. We've never had the know-how that we have at our availability today. We've never had the tools to reach out today. I can remember just a few years ago where if you just wanted to put a simple video on your website, I was at a conference and it cost $20,000 to buy the software a year just to put a video on your website. We got this thing called YouTube now and it's free. And so the cost of technology and what you can use every single day at your fingertips is just mind-blowing. We just have to start using it. And if we do, churches that are so small that never thought they could reach out into the community like this because they're using methods that were invented in the early 1900s, to some of the tools and technologies and outreach approaches that we have today, it's just mind-blowing. Your church can reach out to tens of thousands of people right now, tomorrow, and you only have to spend a few dollars to do it. There's just no excuse for us to not embrace it and make our churches so much more successful about getting the word out. I'm a big believer that the message, while it never changes, we have to continually look at the methods that we're using, and the methods that are available to us today are just mind-blowing. So I just want to invite you to take a leap with me, to make a shift in how you've approached evangelism, and to do that, you may have to let go a little bit of the old and grab a little bit of the new, but start using it. Get on YouTube, do your research. The results can be tremendous. And if you want to have a conversation, that's something we're really passionate about, we'd love to, but at the least, we hope that it sparks an idea in your brain that there's a better way to reach out into your communities today than that's ever been available to us in the past.